We will start today's session with a conversation with Joshua Posamentier, co-founder and managing partner at Congruent Ventures. Welcome, Joshua, to the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Where are you dialing from?
I am in the Bay Area, in the East Bay.
Okay. So I'm in Menlo Park.
I'm not far at all.
Let's start by having you introduce the firm, Congruent Ventures, as well as a bit of your background. Let's get you acquainted with our audience.
Great. So the firm, Congruent Ventures, is a relatively new firm. We were started in 2016. We're on our second fund at this point. This is a $125 million fund. We're focused on early stage companies in the sustainability and clean technology landscape. This includes sectors from alternative energy to food and agriculture, urban and mobility, and sustainable consumption production. So pretty broad spectrum. And within those, we will invest in anything from deep tech and hardware to software to fintech to consumer products, anything that has a sustainability aspect to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to keep this contextual, our focus, 1Mby1M's focus is in IT and IT-enabled services. So if you could, talk primarily about the intersection of your sustainability work and IT and IT-related ventures, that would be terrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, so with that context, could you also elaborate a bit on what your definition of early stage is? Early stage has now fragmented quite a bit, all the way from, pre-seed, seed, post-seed, pre-series A, small series A, large series A. Where in that continuum do you like to play?
So we play anywhere from very first money in to sort of an early Series B in using today's definition. So
okay.
I think north of 80% of our deals have been first institutional checks. So we tend to skew pretty early. We're happy to lead, happy to follow. We have historically led about 2/3 of the deals we've done, but it's not part of our core thesis. So we're happy to do whichever makes sense.
And what is the check size when you operate in the, first check or early check mode? What check sizes do you write?
So historically, we've written checks as small as 150K, and right now we sort of cap it out at for a first check at about 4 million. So it's a very wide range. It really just depends on the situation.
And geography? Do you invest all over the United States, all over the world, only in the Bay Area? What's your scope?
So we have a North American focus, but not a limitation. So just given the small size of the team and our hands-on, typically pretty involved approach, it tends to be easier to focus, closer to home, i.e. in North America. But we have an investment in Eastern Europe. We have been actively looking elsewhere as well. So overseas is within range.
Okay. So let's do a few case studies of the kinds of companies you have invested in. And in doing that, if you could highlight a bit, when did this company come to you? What did you see when they came to you that caught your attention and that compelled you to write checks? Do maybe 2 or 3 of these use cases, and then we will try to understand based on that how you think of deals.
Sure. Any particular ones in the portfolio that you think would be interesting, or should I just pick some that I?
You should pick. I don't know your portfolio at all, so I can't.
Sure. So let's see. One that's recently raised some money and just top of mind is a company in our portfolio called 1Mby1M. and despite the name, they don't actually manufacture much in the way of robotics, but they're a machine learning and machine vision company that uses advanced machine vision to basically control robots, third-party robots, to sort recycling and really extract more value from that waste stream. So instead of people picking those recycling targets right now, because it's actually a pretty hard machine learning problem, the CEO worked on aspects of this for his PhD thesis in machine learning, and spun that into a company, and we were some of the very first investors into that as he left Caltech.
And so what university did this research happen at?
He was at Caltech, the CEO, and so we invested close to 3 years ago, and then Sequoia just led their Series A last year. So they're off to the races.
They're selling to businesses, they're selling to machine makers, robot makers, yeah? Their
current customer base are operators, and so they sell their software and along with packaged robotics as well. So they partner with big robotics companies, but they sell to the recycling facilities.
I see. Okay, interesting. Got it. Okay, let's do another one.
Let's see, another one. We have a company called Energetic Insurance, which interestingly is a pure play insurtech company. They make an insurance product backed by a top 5 global reinsurance company to basically do credit enhancement for customers that want to get solar and other energy products, but have no credit of their own. So small businesses frequently just don't have, it's not that they have bad credit, they just don't have any credit. If you're a Fortune 500 company, you have good commercial credit, you can borrow money. But if you're a small business, it's a lot more difficult. You have to have a recourse loan, you have to have personal guarantees, and Energetic wraps energy projects that make good financial sense on their own in an insurance product, so that you as a small business owner can get financing for them. And so it really opens up a $1 trillion opportunity globally for new energy deployments with better financial tools.
Interesting. Okay. Now, in the 2 examples that you shared so far, talk a bit about how did these companies come to you? Why did they come to you, or how did you find them, and what did they come with? So
AMP Robotics initially came in through a friend who had previously worked at a lab in Colorado, and he'd joined the company sort of as a business advisor. Joined the founder as a business advisor, and I was at a conference, an NREL conference in Denver, and he just caught me in between events, parts of the event, and said, "You have to meet this guy. This is an amazing idea." And it was basically the 2 of them and a PowerPoint presentation. And so that was that was the inception of that new relationship.
So the technology was not in place yet, that they developed the technology after you invested?
So the core technology, the machine learning parts, had mostly been developed, well, at least initially developed in proof of concept at Caltech, and they had not. I don't think they'd actually built tested this on a real world system yet. But the concept was good, and this is a space that we'd looked in previously for many years and never really made an investment. So we were generally familiar with the problem they were trying to solve, and this seemed like a compelling solution to a problem we already knew existed. That was pretty straightforward.
And what was the check size?
So the round size, which I can speak to, was initially somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5 million. I can't remember exactly where it came in. So we certainly did a good chunk of that, and then we raised a little more capital, and then the last year was, I think, I don't have the top of my head, under 20 million. So for the Series A.
I see. Okay. let's switch to the other example that you talked about, and what is the trajectory, and how did you find it? What caught your attention? Why, and etc.
So with Energetic, I surprisingly hadn't ever met either of the founders previously. They're both energy space veterans. One from Enernoc, one from Fraunhofer Institute, and so I should have known them, but never crossed paths. I was introduced there via one of their advisors, who I've known for years and years out of the Bay Area. That company is based in Boston, where I'm in Boston at least, well, historically at least 3 or 4 times a year. But so I was introduced to Energetic through one of their advisors, and introduced extremely early. Both of the co-founders had just left their prior jobs, and had been working with this advisor. And they said, look, we're not really ready to raise. Here's what we're doing. What do you think? And we'll be ready to raise, our first money in, 3 to 6 months. And let's keep in touch. And so we did exactly that, kept in touch. They made some more progress. I think they reached out 2 or 3 months later to say, here's what we've done. What do you think? And then I think it was about 6 months.
What had they done? In 2 or 3 months, what had they done?
So this one, the couple things. So the core of that business is their underwriting engine. It ingests a lot of software, a lot of data from the markets, and provides sort of underwriting guidance. And so what they'd done initially is they had proved that they could gather a lot of data and show, at least preliminarily, that it was good data, that it was valid, and it was something you could base insurance on ultimately. So they proved that. And then the next phase, so that was the first thing. That was the first question they answered. The second question they answered is it possible to structure a product as a startup that's poorly capitalized, or minimally capitalized, with an insurance partner of some sort? And that was the second question they spent probably 3 months sort of digging into and answering, and said, look, there is actually a path towards a product here that makes sense in the insurance world. So I'd spent some of this time just coming up to speed on insurance, because I've never invested in an insurance company before. And so that was kind of what I did on the side, but they were doing it in parallel. But proving those two things. So can they get the right kind of data and prove that it should work? And can they structure a product in the space? And they did both of those things. And then, we led their pre-seed round to ensure that they could actually build a product of some sort. So thus far, it had all basically been paper and manual. And then that first pre-seed round enabled them to build sort of a minimum viable product, hack together, and develop a formal relationship with a reinsurance partner. And then we also led the Series Seed, where that was contingent on them actually signing up that reinsurance partner, which they did. And so that was, I think we made the first investment 2.5 years ago. And then we made led the seed last year, about a year ago.
Okay. So, Josh, we've looked at a bit of what you've done and how you operate. Granted, it's very short and very little, but at least we've got a flavor. I want you to kind of look ahead and share with us what in one of your examples, you said you invested in a problem that you were already familiar with, and you found a great technology out of Caltech that addresses that problem. So you were already familiar with the problem domain, and one could, posit that you were already looking for a solution to that problem, a company that addresses that problem. Are there other such problems, looking ahead, that you have identified that you would like to find an entrepreneur team that solves that problem, has the expertise to solve that problem? And please pick the ones that are in the technology, IT and IT-enabled services domain.
Sure. So the way we typically operate, and just to give some context, is we tend to be we have deep theses around certain things, like the areas that we see are huge issues. In reality, we have those theses, but at the same time, we are an early stage firm. And so we look at whatever comes in whenever it comes in. So we're pretty opportunistic in terms of the actual transactions. So some of the challenges I'd say we have that are definitely IT centric, not challenges, but opportunities we see. There's a lot in supply chain efficiency. We've made two or three bets at least in making supply chains more efficient. One of them was a company that's basically turning paper at the edge of supply chain, so bills of lading and invoices from paper to digital. Pretty straightforward. Another is doing leveraging data and Internet of Things tools to ensure better supply chain quality for food, specifically for grains and seeds. And the third one is doing route optimization, so driving fewer miles to hit fewer stops. So all of those hit a topic that we've looked at before. Areas I'm really interested in right now are making better use of multimodal transportation. So U.S. Rail freight is underutilized dramatically. We have too many trucks on the road. So how do you make these systems interoperate? I mean, it's really a software problem at the end of the day. I think what Flexport's done on transshipping for freight has been just amazing. That's obviously too late for us, but we would have absolutely done something like that early. Multimodal transportation tools, so blending the different things we've got from scooters to ride shares to car share to public transportation, all of that, blending that all in. Tools around urban and infrastructure tech to enable urban planners and public planners to make better decisions to optimize what resources we have to do what's needed. Those are all huge opportunities. And then there's better on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I would say our electric and energy utilities are operating on software that was really written 30, 40 years ago, and bringing those capabilities into today's software space is potentially huge. We have one company working on a corner of that market called Camus. They're working on replacing some of the edge software in the utility space. But that core software from billing, driving a billing system or a transactive energy model, all of those are those are marketplace models. Those are asset control models. They've been done elsewhere, and the utility space is a very conservative universe, and so we just haven't seen that space presented really with a compelling set of solutions. And I think that's, again, a huge opportunity. I mean, that's a tens to hundreds of billions of dollars globally opportunity. So those are a few of the IT-centric areas that we've really been looking for. So we keep paying attention and understanding at the end of the day what makes these successful in our minds is not only developing the right product, but understanding how to take them to market, since a lot of those are very conservative markets. So understanding how a utility buys, how you need to build a company to intercept that purchasing pattern and not overcapitalize or spend it too early. So those are, it's a tricky space. It's much more difficult than a simple enterprise IT tool.
So given what's going on in the world right now, we are obviously facing an incredible lapse of sustainability on a global scale. How do you process that? Are there problems that you see can be solved with technology and scalability? How are you seeing things already? Are you thinking about, or are you looking for things in this domain?
So interestingly, almost everything we look at and everything we invest in actually reduces costs at the end of the day. And so interestingly, there's no sacrifice to be made when you move towards most, not all, but most sustainability centric software solutions or companies. The challenge and the perception that it's a more expensive thing is a little bit outdated. And so my take, especially as we're talking about sustainability software globally, is if profitability is a challenge, you should look towards sustainability as an opportunity to reduce costs. They improve efficiency, improve access, grow markets, shift Obviously, not everything's good for everybody. So what's good for alternative energy is probably not good for conventional energy. But if you're building a company and the trend is going in that direction, and most countries around the world, our country here accepted, unfortunately, are part of the Paris Accords, which will reduce the carbon footprint relative to prime numbers. That trend and those implementing those changes is again, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to shift value from a very old and outdated and non-sustainable ecosystem to a sustainable one. So again, it's cost savings. At the end of the day, it makes things cheaper for consumers long term, reduces volatility. I mean, all that we're seeing in terms of volatility that's taking its toll on the oil and gas industry today between Saudi Aramco and the Russians, like that is not something you're going to see with alternative energy in nearly the same way.
So going back a bit to your first example of investing in this robotics technology, one thing that I'm monitoring is that we are probably going towards an accelerated pace of adoption of robotics technologies in factories. We've just gone through a tremendous shock where, factory workers can't get to work. And I think there's going to be, and that creates tremendous supply chain disruption. So the people who own those factories are going to accelerate their move to as much automation as possible and removing that risk of people not being able to come to work at a much more accelerated pace than the pace at, the trajectory of that industry so far. Coupled with that, there's going to be some, supply chain reorientation where countries are going to try to bring in more self-sufficient supply chains within their shores so that they don't have to depend so much on China and so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit of disruption and discontinuity happening in that space that accelerates the pace of automation. Now, how do you resolve the sustainability question on this? In one sense, it becomes more sustainable as in the supply chains can be disrupted less readily. On the other hand, this also accelerates the employment issue, basically automation replacing humans and humans becoming further disenfranchised. How do you resolve this from a sustainability point of view?
So that's a tough question. I totally agree with your analysis that this crisis, among others, is shifting people towards desiring more automation in general. I would say based on also parallel experiences. So in addition to AMP Robotics, we have another company called Fox Robotics, which makes autonomous forklifts. And in much the same way, they've both experienced dramatic labor challenges. It's a terrible, picking recycling off of a conveyor belt, 8 hours a day is just it's an awful, awful job. I mean, granted, some people have to do it, but they have huge issues staffing those roles. People won't stay in them. They're not doing them very well, and so it ruins the output quality. So you have to ask yourself, well, what's really the point of having a person do those jobs? If they're turning over that quickly because they're awful, awful jobs, maybe there are some things that robotics and automation are better for. And nobody's going at these applications with an eye towards specifically removing people from the equation. They're going after them because they can't find the people. This is happening in agriculture as well. I mean, crops are being left in the field because at this point in the U.S. and the EU as well, there aren't enough people to pick those crops always. I mean, right now we have a whole different situation, but previously there's just been a massive labor shortage in some of these sectors. But with Fox Robotics, automating forklifts is actually, you could argue that's actually much more of a safety feature, right? There's not numerically that many forklift drivers in the world, but it's one of the most dangerous things you can do between, human operated forklifts accidentally injuring and killing people and then the drivers themselves being injured, it's one of the highest injury jobs in a distribution center or warehouse. And so by automating that, you make it a lot safer. I mean, it's sort of the same thing ultimately for automotive autonomy. If you think about it as a safety feature, in the U.S., something like 40,000 people a year are killed in traffic accidents. If you could reduce that by half, kill 20,000 fewer people, what's that worth to society? So, can we slow the shift to automation for manufacturing and in logistics and supply chain? I don't think so. I mean, we've been on this automation march for at least the last 50 years, and what it is productivity improvement, and ultimately it drops the cost of manufacturing. So that trend is happening whether we participate in it or not. We'd rather see it happen in the most sustainable way possible, and hopefully not erode jobs, but improve existing worker productivity. So to the extent that we can leverage existing workforces to have higher output, so the same factory with the same staff, perhaps instead of driving forklifts, they're overseeing the forklifts and some other automated equipment. It's safer, probably pays better, and it's more sustainable long term from a workforce perspective. But
so from an entrepreneurship and venture capital point of view, I think manufacturing and supply chain and industrial automation is one of the greatest money-making opportunities for the next, certainly for the next decade. So I don't think entrepreneurs or investors are going to hesitate on that one, and they should not hesitate on that one. The bigger philosophical question is much more complex. If you're interested in that topic, audience, you can read my Man and Superman series on the 1Mby1M blog. I have dealt with this at a much bigger scale from a philosophical point of view and futuristic point of view, what is likely to happen. All right. Well, that was a very